Welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're diving into the second part of our series on the pressing question: when will World War III start? The unpredictable future, wildcards, and unknown factors. Gazing into the crystal ball of global conflict, we see established geopolitical tensions. But what about the unforeseen events, the wildcards, that could trigger a devastating chain reaction? This chapter dives into the murky waters of the unknown, exploring factors that could dramatically reshape the landscape of war and peace. New actors on the global stage. His story teaches us that new players can disrupt the balance of power. Consider these potential wildcards, theories of non-state actors. Terrorist organizations with access to advanced weaponry or cyber warfare capabilities could become significant threats. The scramble for resources. As climate change disrupts resource availability, competition for water, food, and energy could escalate into conflict, particularly in fragile regions. The expansion of space programs, the growing militarization of space, raises concerns about potential conflicts over celestial resources or weaponization of space technologies. Technology, a double-edged sword. Technological advancements are often touted as tools for peace, but they can also be instruments of war. Here's where the line gets blurry. Artificial intelligence (AI). Autonomous weapons systems that can choose targets and launch attacks without human intervention raise ethical and safety concerns. Imagine an AI misinterpreting data and triggering a conflict. Cyber warfare. The ability to cripple a nation's infrastructure with a single keystroke is a terrifying prospect. A cyber attack on critical systems, misattributed to a rival nation, could spark a real-world war. Biotechnology. The potential for engineering biological weapons or genetically modified organisms for warfare adds another layer of complexity to potential conflicts. Climate change. The looming threat multiplier. Climate change isn't just an environmental issue. It's a potential security threat multiplier. Rising sea levels, mass displacement due to extreme weather events, and competition for dwindling resources could exacerbate existing tensions and trigger conflicts. Imagine a scenario where water scarcity sparks a war between neighboring countries, miscalculation, and unintended consequences. Sometimes, war is not a product of grand strategy, but a tragic misstep. Here's why miscalculations are a wildcard. Fog off war. In the heat of a crisis, leaders might misinterpret actions or intentions, leading to a military response based on faulty information. Escalation ladders. Small skirmishes can escalate rapidly, with each side responding with increasing force until a full-blown war erupts. The human factor. Leaders with volatile personalities or a thirst for power can make reckless decisions with devastating consequences. Preparing for the unthinkable. The global implications of WW3. The very notion of World War III is enough to send shivers down anyone's spine. But beyond the initial shock lies a chilling reality. A global conflict would leave a trail of devastation unlike anything witnessed before. Let's delve into the potential consequences, the human cost, and the shattered world that might emerge from the ashes. A world at war. The human cost. Imagine a world where cities lie in ruins, hospitals overflow with the wounded, and civilians become casualties in a conflict they never chose. Here's a glimpse of the potential human cost. Mass casualties. Modern warfare, with its advanced weaponry, would inflict catastrophic casualties on both military personnel and civilians. Think beyond battlefield deaths. Widespread famine and disease outbreaks could follow, claiming even more lives. Displacement and refugee crisis. Millions would be forced to flee their homes, creating a global refugee crisis of unprecedented scale. Imagine entire regions destabilized by the movement of displaced populations. Psychological trauma. The psychological impact of war would be profound, leaving lasting scars on generations to come. Imagine a society struggling to rebuild not just infrastructure, but also the collective psyche. Economic meltdown, a domino effect. War doesn't just shatter lives, it cripples economies. Here's how a global conflict could trigger a financial meltdown. Disrupted supply chains. Global trade would grind to a halt, disrupting the flow of essential goods and resources. Imagine shortages of food, medicine, and energy leading to price spikes and economic collapse. Cyber attacks on financial systems. Critical infrastructure like banks and stock exchanges could be targeted, crippling financial markets and wiping out savings. Long-term rebuilding costs. The cost of rebuilding destroyed infrastructure and lost productivity would be astronomical, hindering economic recovery for decades. Shattered security and a new world order. The global security painstakingly built after World War II could crumble in the face of a major conflict. Imagine a world where international laws weakened, the United Nations and other international organizations could struggle to maintain order in a world fragmented by conflict. Rise of authoritarianism. Power vacuums created by war could lead to the rise of authoritarian regimes, further destabilizing the global landscape. Increased militarization. The specter of future conflicts would likely lead to a permanent state of heightened military preparedness, diverting resources from social programs and development. Limited war, a myth or a dangerous gamble. The idea of a limited war, a controlled conflict without escalation to a full-scale global showdown, is a tempting myth. Here's why it might be a dangerous gamble. The butterfly effect. A seemingly contained conflict can quickly spiral out of control, drawing in allies and escalating tensions on multiple fronts. Nuclear brinkmanship. Even a conventional war between major powers could increase the risk of nuclear escalation, with catastrophic consequences. Miscalculations or accidents could have global repercussions. The long shadow of war. Even a limited war leaves scars. The distrust and animosity fueled by conflict can linger for generations, hindering international cooperation and setting the stage for future conflicts. The unthinkable. A call to action. While the potential consequences of World War III are horrifying, this chapter isn't meant to induce despair. It's a call to action, a reminder of the importance of diplomacy, conflict resolution, and building a more peaceful world. By understanding the potential costs, we can work towards a future where dialogue triumphs over violence. The choice is ours. Prepare for the unthinkable, or strive to make it unthinkable altogether. A world we can build. Lessons for peace and security. The shadow of World War III may loom large, but it doesn't have to engulf us. History offers countless examples of humanity's capacity for cooperation and conflict resolution. In this chapter, we'll explore the tools we have to build a more secure and peaceful future. Learning from the past. Success stories in conflict resolution. Throughout history, nations have found ways to resolve disputes peacefully. Here are some inspiring examples. The Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962. The world teetered on the brink of nuclear war during the Cuban Missile Crisis. Cool heads prevailed, with the US and USSR establishing a direct communication hotline to prevent misunderstandings and future crises. The Good Friday Agreement. This 1998 agreement brought an end to decades of sectarian violence in Northern Ireland. It serves as a powerful example of how negotiation and compromise can pave the way for a lasting peace. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa. Following the end of apartheid, South Africa established a Truth Commission to promote healing and reconciliation. This innovative approach could be a model for other nations emerging from conflict. Building bridges. The power of dialogue. Communication and understanding are crucial for preventing conflict. Here's why dialogue matters. Diplomacy and international institutions. the United Nations, regional organizations like the African Union, and diplomatic channels offer platforms for nations to air grievances, negotiate solutions, and build trust. Cultural exchange programs, exposing people to different cultures and fostering understanding, can break down stereotypes and build empathy, reducing the us versus them mentality that fuels conflict. Citizen diplomacy, grassroots initiatives that connect people from different countries can promote peace-building efforts and foster a sense of global community. Strengthening the pillars of peace, a global effort. Peace doesn't just happen. It requires active participation. Here's how we can build a more secure world. Investing in arms control. International treaties that limit weapons proliferation and promote transparency in military activities are essential for reducing tensions and preventing arms races. Addressing the root causes of conflict, poverty, inequality, and resource scarcity can fuel conflict. Investing in development and addressing these issues head-on is crucial for promoting lasting peace. Promoting human rights and democracy societies that respect human rights and uphold democratic values are more likely to be peaceful and stable. A world transformed. Hope for a brighter future. The future isn't predetermined. By learning from the past, fostering dialogue, and working to build a more just and equitable world order, we can prevent the unthinkable. Imagine a world where international curiosity takes precedence over national rivalries. Disputes are settled through dialogue and diplomacy. Resources are shared equitably, and global challenges are tackled collectively. This world may seem utopian, but it's a future worth striving for. The choice lies with us. Will we be passive observers of a world teetering on the brink? Or will we be the architects of a more peaceful future? The answer lies not just in the pages of this book, but in the actions we take today. Flashpoints and fault lines. Where might the conflict begin? Throughout history, specific regions have become breeding grounds for conflict. This chapter explores some of the most concerning hots. The South China Sea. Territorial disputes simmer here, with China's expansive claims clashing with those of Vietnam, the Philippines, and others. A mishap at sea, a miscalculation, and the situation could escalate rapidly. The Korean Peninsula, the unresolved Korean War, and North Korea's nuclear ambitions are a constant source of tension. Imagine a scenario where a missile test goes wrong or a border skirmish ignites a wider conflict. The Middle East. This region is a tangled web of rivalries and sectarian conflicts. Proxy wars, cyber attacks, or a disruption of critical energy supplies could trigger a wider conflagration. Myths and realities, separating fact from fiction. When discussing World War III, certain myths often resurface. Here, we separate fact from fiction. Myth: a single assassination will spark WW3. Reality: while an assassination can heighten tensions, it's unlikely to be the sole cause. Look back at the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in 1914. It was a contributing factor, not the sole trigger, for World War I. Fact: cyber warfare is a game changer. A crippling cyber attack on critical infrastructure could be seen as an act of war, leading to devastating consequences. Beyond the brink, the road to peace. While the potential for conflict exists, it isn't inevitable. Here's why. The globalized world. Nations are more interconnected than ever before, making war economically and socially devastating for all parties involved. The power of diplomacy. International institutions like the UN and regional organizations provide platforms for dialogue and conflict resolution. The rise of civil society. Grassroots movements and peace-building efforts promote understanding and cooperation across borders. A world we can build, embracing a brighter future. This chapter doesn't offer a definitive answer to when World War III might occur. Instead, it highlights the importance of vigilance, By understanding the risks and working towards a more peaceful world, we can prevent the worst-case scenario. Imagine a world where nations prioritize diplomacy over military might, where resources are shared equitably, and where global challenges are tackled through cooperation. This future may seem utopian, but it's a goal worth striving for. The choice lies with each of us. This video is just the beginning of the conversation. We encourage you to research current events and geopolitical issues, engage in discussions about peace building and conflict resolution, support organizations working towards a more peaceful world. By working together, we can create a future where the question of when World War III might start is rendered irrelevant. The power to prevent another global catastrophe is within our collective hands. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe.